Dear Rhode Island, my name is Ashley Adamson, and I am the 2021 Rhode Island State Teacher of the Year. I have been teaching for 15 years, and I have spent the last 6 as a 3rd grade teacher at Hathaway School in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Friday, March 13th, 2020 was a day that drastically changed this job that I love. It was the day I was told that my district would be closing schools for the next 2 weeks. What started as teaching from home for a few weeks turned into distance learning for the remainder of the school year. I was nervous, anxious, sad, and hopeful all at the same time. One thing was clear to me. My students needed me now more than ever. Continuing to hold morning meetings on Zoom and allowing students time to talk was a priority. They had questions. They needed to be heard. They needed reassurance that they were okay and that I was okay. I always took pride in the connections I made with my families, and this was brought to a new level during the pandemic. During this time of uncertainty, I was a constant for my students, and this was not something I took lightly. The pandemic certainly brought about hardships, but like many others, I was adamant about seeing the silver lining. When the 2020-21 school year began, both my students and I shared a deep appreciation being back in the classroom. It didn't matter that we were wearing masks or that students were sitting 6 feet apart. There was an unspoken feeling of gratitude, and that was all that mattered at that moment. My message of hope through all of this is one of my favorite quotes. Live in the moment, laugh every day, love beyond words. Sincerely, Ashley Adamson.
Dear Rhode Island, my name is Bob Bradley, and I am the Fire Chief of the Manville Fire Department in Lincoln. For the past 34 years, I was a firefighter for the Central Falls Fire Department, including the last 8 years as Chief. As news broke around March 13th, 2021 that a shutdown was being considered, it became evident that as a bagpiper, my favorite holiday of the year on March 17th was not going to happen. Changing the way firefighters and emergency medical personnel respond to calls needed to be addressed immediately. As news of what was potentially on the horizon continued to come in, the anxiety level of all of the members of the department went through the roof. All of a sudden, the planning of my former fire chief from over 10 years ago came out of the blue. While cleaning a corner of the station seldom used, some storage bins were discovered, and in those bins was personal protective equipment that had been stored from the H1N1 flu epidemic. As months moved on, the number of calls in Central Falls escalated at an alarming rate. Every firefighter adapted to their new response protocols and new protective gear. First responders were the first ones to be offered the vaccine, and my name was on the sign-up list for day number 1. That little glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel became just a little brighter with every shot that was given. The biggest lesson that I learned is a mountain such as COVID-19 cannot be conquered by a single person. But with everyone working together as a team with a common purpose, anything is possible. Respectfully, Chief Robert E. Bradley Jr., Manville Fire Department.
Dear Rhode Island, the closing to my senior year of high school fell victim to the pandemic first. Planning for prom, graduation, banquets, picnics, and other senior events had just begun. But for most, March 13th was the last day that most of the grade would see each other again. I went into my senior year ready to have the same experience that my parents and generations before me did. I was looking forward to my last high school track and field season, a sport which I had dedicated so much time to throughout my years and had defined most of my high school experience. I was looking forward to representing the high school on a state level for academics, which also took up a majority of my time. Most importantly, I was looking forward to savoring the last days of high school with my classmates, which I had heard great things about from the generations before me. Knowing that I could not change the outcome of this, I began to think optimistically for the start of my freshman year of college. Going to college is a unique experience, pandemic or not. You go from being comfortable in your niche from high school to another individual on a much larger scale. Add a pandemic into that, and it is a recipe for a lost sense of self. I was excited for my first year on the women's track and field team as well, and to get back into a team environment for the first time in months. However, the pandemic caused us to be slightly different as well, and instead of interacting with around 60 girls on the team, interaction was limited to around 6 girls per pod. Most importantly, the pandemic allowed me to realize how quickly life can change, and to treat every task you complete, race you run, or interaction with a friend as one that could be your last for a while. And that is a message of hope I will stand by for the rest of my life. Sincerely, Sydney.